Welcome to McMaster Minds, a podcast brought to you by McMaster University's undergraduate psychiatry program. This podcast will explore psychiatry training and the path to getting there through honest conversations with residents and staff. We hope this gives you a sense about the life of a psychiatry resident and staff psychiatrist, and that it helps you make the decision about whether psychiatry, and hopefully McMaster, is right for you.
Thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Baker. Welcome to our podcast. Do you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So my name's Nathan Baker, and I'm a staff psychiatrist at St. Joe's in Hamilton, and I've been practicing there now for 3 years. Before that, I was doing my residency at U of T, and before that, medical school at McMaster.
All right, so can you tell us a little bit about what drew you to psychiatry initially?
That's a great question. I think there are many different pathways that people take to our field, and a lot of people end up feeling fulfilled. Some enter medical school unsure of what they want to do, and they sample different specialties and decide on psychiatry. And then other people are drawn to medical school specifically to become psychiatrists. And I think I was kind of in the second camp. For me, I've always had an interest in understanding the human condition, which I've approached from different perspectives over the course of my life. Whether it be philosophy, psychology, neuroscience, anthropology, religion, especially Buddhism. And, initially that was more from a theoretical perspective, and then more so an experimental perspective. And eventually I've kind of landed on a clinical approach. And initially I was debating between a clinical psychology PhD and going to medical school to become a psychiatrist, and decided on the latter. And over the course of medical school and residency, I feel really happy with that decision. I think psychiatry as a career is an incredible career. We have the opportunity to partake in a diverse array of clinical experiences. It's an intellectually and emotionally stimulating field. There's a lot of novelty. Our patients don't, fit neatly into our little diagnostic categories. You have to think critically, and our patients, they do get better. Some of them remarkably so. We have a diverse array of treatments available to us, pharmacological, psychotherapeutic, and it's a lot of fun kind of toggling between those. I think as a career, it offers a lot of job security. There are a lot of opportunities. You have a lot of autonomy over your career. And from my perspective, I think it's well compensated. So there are a lot of things that have drawn me to this field, and a lot of reasons that I feel grateful to be in it.
Do you have any particular special interests within psychiatry?
Clinically, I'm very enthusiastically a generalist. So I kind of do general adult psychiatry. I love working with a diverse patient population and toggling between those different skill sets. Historically, I've had an interest in neuroimaging and brain stimulation, having done a master's degree in that. Lately, I don't do any research, and I don't plan to go back to that. But I do have some personal interests that I read up on in my spare time. Really enjoy reading about the history of psychiatry, critical psychiatry, and psychotherapy, especially psychodynamic psychotherapy. I have a particular interest in a form of group therapy, Lone style group therapy, which at some point I'd love to incorporate into my practice. Just haven't figured out how to do so yet.
Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself. So this is a day in the life. And so we're hoping to jump right in and just have you tell our listeners what a typical day looks like for a staff psychiatrist.
So I think it's highly variable given the diverse range of clinical populations and practice settings. So some people like myself have general practices, other people have highly specialized practices. Sometimes a person's practice might be, specific to a particular demographic, working with children and adolescents, or working with the geriatric population. Other people work with specific patient populations, mood disorders, psychotic disorders, and so on. And there are a lot of different practice settings. So some people, work as outpatient psychiatrists, and that might be at an outpatient clinic affiliated with a hospital or at a family health team, or in private practice. Other people, like myself, do inpatient psychiatry. There's also emergency psychiatry, as well as consultation liaison psychiatry, working on medical and surgical wards. And then, some people do outreach work as well, going to people's homes, going to care facilities, or traveling to underserviced communities as well. And then there's forensic psychiatry as well, where people will spend time in court. Many people do some combination of those things, not just one of those things. And then on top of clinical work, there's also educational work and research that some people might do. I have colleagues who have exclusively clinical practices, and then others who do very little in the way of clinical work and do almost entirely research. Myself, I kind of approach my work week by dividing it into 10 half days, and then allocate different things to each one of those half days. So Monday to Friday mornings, I'm on the inpatient unit, and then Monday afternoons, I'm in the psychiatric emergency department, and then Tuesday to Friday, I do in the afternoon some combination of outpatient work or kind of unrelated administrative work. And just a kind of glimpse into my inpatient work, that might be doing consultations on new admissions, that might be seeing patients in follow-up, that might be leading family meetings or presenting at the consent and capacity board for patients who are detained involuntarily or deemed incapable of consenting to their treatment. On the outpatient side, it's mostly new consults, either referred from family doctors or from discharges from the inpatient unit, and then some administrative work around that. And then I have some educational work that I do here and there.
How much call do you do as a staff psychiatrist, and do you get a choice in all that?
So it's definitely going to depend on where you work and how much call you want to do. There's definitely some choice in that. So, I try to do as much call as I can do sustainably, because I enjoy call, and it's also, it pays well. And as an early career physician who, graduated medical school with a lot of debt and now has a mortgage, that's just something on my mind. But I have, that's very much by choice on my end. And here at, St. Joe's, we have a very large call pool of physicians, and kind of a select number that kind of take a lot of the call shifts.
So how much time do you spend doing clinical encounters versus charting in a week?
I've never quantified that. I definitely spend a lot of time charting. As psychiatrists, we spend a lot of time documenting, and sometimes our patients can be quite complex, and reading through past discharge summaries can be time-consuming as well. I would say that I probably spend 80% of my time doing clinical work and 20% of time, doing, chart reviews and documentation. I'm sure there are colleagues out there of mine who skew more in the direction of clinical work, but that's my kind of, napkin math estimate.
How do you engage in your hobbies and interests during the week, and how has this changed since residency?
So for me, as a father to two young children, my priority outside of work is always, trying to be as physically and psychologically present for my children. So once I'm done my work day, getting home is a priority, and seeing them. After we get the kids to bed, I have a fairly kind of typical evening, which typically involves some form of exercise, and then maybe catching up on some documentation, and then either reading or watching some TV. That's like a typical night most nights.
How have you been juggling the responsibilities that come with staffhood, and what are the challenges that arise with being a staff versus being a resident in maintaining your health and wellness?
For me, my experience of transitioning to practice was slightly confounded by also becoming a parent. And so when I moved to Hamilton and started working at St. Joe's, which was a new city, a new institution for me, kind of a new culture to familiarize myself with, I had a 1-year-old who's now 4, and I now have a second child who's 1, and so it's been a bit of a challenge at times to balance the many constraints on me in terms of doing my job well, trying to work as much as I can, but while still being physically and psychologically present for my partner and my children. And I'd love to say that it's gone effortlessly, but it's a work in progress. I've definitely gotten better at balancing those things over the course of the last 3 years. I think making sure that I maintain some stability in terms of my routine, like if I can get kind of my daily exercise in, if I'm making sure that I'm sleeping well, that for me matters a lot.
On the topic of family, many people think about starting a family during residency. Do you have any reflections on the choice between starting a family during residency or during staffhood? And what kind of factors do you think play into that decision for family planning?
Well, I can only comment from the perspective of being the non-childbearing parent, which obviously is a lot easier. I think in general it's highly idiosyncratic, and it's going to depend on the person making the decision and their unique circumstances. I think there are pros and cons to having a child in residency, and pros and cons of having a child as a staff. In residency, you can get time off, and there's financial compensation. The main downside is it delays completion of your program by some amount of time. For me, I only took 3 months off in my PGY5 year for my first child, and that was, I think, the maximum amount of time I was able to take without having to delay my program completion date, so I could transition to practice on time. The main benefit as a staff is that, especially as the non-childbearing parent, I can still work. I was able to work a little bit, and still bring in more money than I would have otherwise made. And so I didn't actually take any time off, any dedicated time off after my second child, but just reduced the overall number of hours worked. But again, I think for me as the non-childbearing parent, it was a bit of a simpler kind of arithmetic, and it would be more complicated as the childbearing parent.
Is there anything about your daily life in staffhood that surprised you or that you weren't anticipating?
I think one of the main challenges when you transition to being a staff, and it's something that not only myself, but I know a lot of my colleagues experienced as well, was the loss of being able to review cases with a supervisor. Even at the end of PGY5, as you're feeling increasingly confident in your skills, it's still great to be able to review a case with a supervisor, just to kind of bounce some ideas off them. And it forces you to think deliberately about what you think is going on with the patient and the decisions that you're making. And when you transition to staff, you no longer have that. And so it can be helpful to nonetheless lean on your colleagues. I think the second thing that surprised me when I transitioned to staff was just the sheer amount that I still didn't know. After finishing the residency program, I felt like I had learned a lot, and indeed I'm sure I had. But in the last 3 years as a staff, I just find myself continuing to learn more and more, and I'm glad that's the case because it makes it more and more exciting. But yeah, I've been surprised by just how much I'm learning still 3 years into it.
All right, and last question is, how do you find coverage for vacations and time off when you're the main physician taking care of inpatient beds?
It's been fairly straightforward for me. Every time I've wanted to take some time off, a week or two here or there, I've just sent out an email to some of my colleagues, seeing if anyone was in a position to step up and provide coverage. And every time I've sent an email out like that, I've gotten a positive response.
All right, so just a last few wrap-up questions would be, would you have any quick advice for budding psychiatry residents who may be among our listeners today?
Yeah, I guess I'd say, embrace the complexity of psychiatry. It's a wonderful specialty. Be humble, try to learn as much as you can, be critical of what you're learning, take stock over the power you have over people's lives, be reflective, deliberate in your practice. Be aware of your limits, manage your countertransference. But it's truly an incredible specialty in my opinion.
What's one thing you wish you knew about psychiatry before starting residency?
That's a great question, and I struggle to answer it because prior to starting medical school, I already had a fair amount of exposure to psychiatry from having done research in the field. I was coming from more of a biomedical model of psychiatry, doing a lot of neuroscience, doing a lot of brain stimulation, going through residency, if there was maybe one thing I took away from it more than anything else is just the importance and even centrality of the therapeutic relationship that we have with our patients, not to underestimate the power of a therapeutic relationship.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Baker. We really appreciate all your time and your insights. So see you around on the wards.